There we go. It wants to unmute me. This is half the fun. Something should go wrong in every video broadcast. My name is Jesse. Welcome to another thrilling Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants program. We are so happy to have you back as we continue our mission. If it's your first time joining us, our mission is to bring the world of science, exploration, and conservation into classrooms around the world through like a gazillion live free interactive broadcasts. In 2022, we did over 500 programs, including at least 15 with the Toronto Zoo. They're all on our YouTube channel if you want to check those out. And we have kicked off 2023 with a bang. We have been to Costa Rica, India, Antarctica, South Africa, Rwanda, Chile, Mars. We've been everywhere. It's been a really exciting start to the year, and I want to thank all of you amazing teachers for joining us as we continue to showcase and celebrate such amazing people and places around the globe. Now, as I mentioned, we have been a big virtual partner of the Toronto Zoo for several years now, doing over 40 broadcasts, I think, with them. All the biggest programs we've ever done have been Toronto Zoo because there's a huge yearning for understanding more about amazing live animals. And the Toronto Zoo is one of the greatest facilities on this planet for working on conservation globally and for providing so many millions of people every year the opportunity to interact with some of the coolest creatures on this planet. So today we are going to learn a bit about animal seasonality, how animals survive in really strange and different habitats. And specifically, we're going to focus on two ambassadors today. This is the number 2, not this. I don't know what I was doing with my hands there. Caribou and Giraffe. So I am so excited to turn it over to Mary Ellen, one of our lead amazing educators with some giraffe fans right behind her to kick us off. And we're going to do a bit of a jog between her and Morgan at Caribou today. We're also, housekeeping note, we're going to have a Kahoot today. So if you want to join us for a 4-question quiz between the talk and Q&A portion, go to kahoot.it and a separate tab on your computer, input that game pin. I'll explain a little more when we get to that stage, but it will be a lot of fun if you join us. Now, I'll put on my professional hat again. Mary Ellen, come on in. Welcome to the broadcast, and thank you so much for another great Zoo program.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to get my friend here behind me in it as well. But before we get started with our broadcast today, I'm going to have Jesse bring up our land acknowledgement so we can do that first. So we'd like to acknowledge that the land that we are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. Thank you so much, Jesse. So before we get started, we're going to head over to the cold first and then pop back over here with our little bit taller friends in the back. But before we do, Jesse did mention that we have a quiz today, or a riddle, while we're doing our program. So I'll give you some hints. It's not going to be a singular animal as the answer. So the answer is not going to be giraffe or caribou. It's going to be more of a scientific vocab word that might be new for you today, but Morgan and I are going to talk about it. So if you think you know the answer, make sure to write it 100 times in the chat. So Jesse has to look through them all for us and find the first person who mentions it. So this is our riddle today. So I live way up in the cold. My ears are small, or so I'm told. You live where it gets really hot, so your ears will grow and grow a lot. So I'll give this a second here in case anyone needs to take a screenshot of it. But remember, we're going to talk about it, but it's not going to be an individual animal name. It's going to be a new scientific word for you to learn about today. So with that, let's throw it over to Morgan, and we'll learn all about our caribou.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mary Ellen. I like the cryptic riddle. We have anyone in the chat you want to share these throughout the broadcast? Please do, and I'll have my eyes peeled for you. Morgan, welcome in at Caribou. So nice to have you here today out in the cold, snowy, nice.
Hello. Yes, Mary Ellen got the warm. I have to be out here in the cold. Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Morgan, and I am so excited for today's broadcast, not only because I get to talk to you all, but because I'm at my favorite animal at the zoo, which is really hard to pick a favorite when you work here. but I am with the caribou. So these animals are iconic Canadian species. They are, of course, on our quarter. So every time you pay with that 25 cents, you see them. But they're also iconic because they help our boreal forests thrive. So they're really important for their ecosystems, and they're also relied upon by lots of Indigenous and northern communities. So keeping these species and the areas that they live in is really safe, is really, really important. But let's get to the whole reason you're here. Let's learn about how they survive in the really cold versus our giraffes surviving in the really hot. So I'm going to turn the camera around here and get the stars of the show. Okay. So we've got, I am just behind a barrier here, so I'll stick it through. We've got our 4 resident caribou here munching away. So we have Hyacinth in the back, Matella nice and close. She's our oldest. And we have Rosa and Delilah there. So we've got our 4 caribou munching away. So to compare how they live in the cold versus the hot savanna animals, we're first going to look at their bodies. So let's take a look at what we can see that helps them live here in the cold. So an obvious one, I'm wearing a hat and mittens and a coat to keep me warm. They've got super thick fur to keep them warm. So that's, of course, an obvious one. We see our animals at home in their thick, nice fur. They've got lots of layers to their coats, so it keeps them nice and warm. But another thing with their physical body to keep them warm is something called Allen's rule. So this is a little rule that says that their body parts will be smaller and stay closer to their bodies in order to keep them warm. So let's look at some specifics. We can look at Matella's ears by her head there, and they are a bit smaller. They're nice and close to her head, they're covered in fur, and they can stay nice and warm by being small and round. And if we look at the other end at their tail, they've got this short, stumpy tail, so nothing's hanging out, getting cold. Then looking at their bodies, they're a bit more compact. They're a little bit short and stubby with thicker limbs. So this all follows Allen's rule by saying their body is going to be more compact in order to lose less body heat. Now think about that when we're looking at our counterparts in a few minutes of the tall animals being more spread out. So that is some physical ways that they can keep themselves warm. Now let's take a look at what they're doing, which is munching away on some of their hay. So looking at caribou nutrition is another way that they can adapt to the cold. So caribou are herbivores, so they eat only plants, they don't eat meat, lots of plants and leaves and those types of things. So if we think about the tundra, there's of course not loads of plants and grass and trees around, luscious trees with leaves around. So they have to scrounge on the ground. So they are called grazers. They're grazing along the ground for their food. They will use their hooves to find their favorite thing to munch on the tundra floor, which is lichen. So they'll munch away on the floor just like their hay is on the floor here, and they'll graze for that all day. So obviously we are not the tundra here in Toronto, so they don't eat lichen here at the zoo, but they eat something that's yummy and mushy and delicious called beet pulp. It'll get all over their noses and it's quite cute. They also really love veggies such as carrots. They love apples and bananas. Now, if you make them eat their greens, I've heard they will eat zucchini, but it's not really their favorite thing to eat. So caribou are also ruminants. This means inside of their stomach, so we have one stomach. That's where our food goes. Whereas caribou are ruminants and they've got 4 stomachs. This means there's 4 separate chambers that each help them to absorb, process, and break down foods differently in each one. So they can bring their food down into those chambers, and then a little bit gross, they can also bring food back up, which is called regurgitate. They can regurgitate food back up, and this is called their cud. And they will sit there and munch on their cud, and this can process it and break it down further and further. Look at them munching away. So then, speaking of food, another thing that cold animals will very often do is called migration. and this is to find different food sources. So caribou, most species of caribou are migratory animals. So where they spend their long winters might be very different than where they spend their summers. So like I said, this is for finding food because as you can imagine, the tundra isn't loaded with tons of options. So they can move around and migrate with their herds to different areas, and they'll find new sources of food. A couple other reasons that they might migrate is to go somewhere more secluded and away from busy areas to have their babies. Hi, Delilah. Oh, we'll stop for a second. She's looking right at us. So yes, they can go somewhere to have their babies that's a bit more secluded. So their babies are called calves. Hi, Delilah. Hi, sweetheart. So they will have their calves somewhere more secluded and away. They also like to get away from bugs. Just like us, they are swarmed by mosquitoes. Mosquitoes love to bite them. So they can migrate to move away from things like mosquitoes and ticks and all those nasty bugs that we don't like either. So one of the last comparisons as far as cold versus hot we're going to talk about is these large things on their heads. So you guessed it, they're antlers. I actually brought one. We'll move the camera back here. I brought one with me. So I got really lucky to have an artifact here from the zoo. This is actually Matella's antler that she shed last year. So their antlers are for lots of different purposes. But one of my favorite facts to talk about with caribou is that they are the only deer species that males and females both have antlers. So not only males like lots of species, both of them have antlers. Now, the really fun part about that is females will keep their antlers over the winter, whereas males actually shed their antlers. So in the winter, when you see a caribou and it has antlers, it's a female, which is really exciting things to think about when you think about reindeer and Santa. So another reason that caribou or the female caribou will hold on to their antlers in the winter is to protect themselves while they're carrying their calves. They are pregnant over the winter, so they use them as protection while they're pregnant. And they can also, looping back in that nutrition in the cold, they'll use their antlers to dig through all of the snow that's in the tundra to find some food. So it all helps them survive in that cold, cold Arctic. So now our animals here can obviously get their food really easily, which is nice and lucky, but it's still really important for them to go through the motions of having those antlers shed and come back every year. Though another thing I will talk about is their feet, which you can't quite see them. They are buried in snow, but our animals here are actually trained to go through hoof trims. Their hooves grow and grow and grow. So all of our animals here go through lots of training to get hoof trims or vaccines or any sorts of things that they need in order to keep them happy and healthy. Now, before I flip it over to Marianne, I'm going to put it back on me for 1 second because it wouldn't be me if I didn't plug a little bit of science. So caribou, we can tell a lot from their feces. So their poop, we can actually partner with different areas and lots of different organizations such as Parks Canada, and we can collect fecal samples from the wild, bring them here to our lab, and we could actually tell if a caribou is pregnant or not, or look at their different stress hormones and find out lots and lots of different answers. So it's really cool to be able to do research on caribou in the wild and have them right here on our grounds to compare it to. I can honestly talk about caribou nonstop, but you do have to learn about the other animals too, and I'll bring you back to the warmth.
Well, we are so excited to head to giraffes, but thank you so much for the amazing tour with the caribou, Morgan. And we're keeping our trend going with Toronto Zoo programs where we have the most incredible animal interactions. I mean, I've been to the zoo 50 times in person, and I swear every time we do a virtual broadcast, the animals are so much closer or looking right at you than I ever have had in real life. It's just amazing. So thank you for the chance to hang out with Delilah. And as you said, we're going to head over to Mary Ellen at Giraffes now. Come on in with your elongated friends.
Amazing. Thanks so much. That was awesome. Now, I know one of the first thing everyone is going to say is, Mary Ellen, why do you get to be inside in the warmth and Morgan has to be outside in the cold? But we did pick this ourselves. Morgan loves the caribou and I love the giraffes. So we have our equal best friends here with us today. And I actually have 3 giraffes here in front of me. So this big one right here, this is our mama giraffe named Mastari. We have her firstborn daughter, Amani, and then we have her second-born son. He's kind of hiding in the back. He might come over in a moment and say hi to us. That is Matu Maini. So we're going to be learning about the 3 of them today. And we also have one more giraffe named Kiko, but he is not going to come out and say hi to us today. We're just going to have these 3 buddies with us. So they are a very interesting species. As you can tell, they are quite large, and this helps them. They are living in a very hot savanna for most of the year. There is some temperature difference. There's a dry season versus a wet season for them. But this hot landscape, they really have to work on their body regulation and their heat regulation. I don't know about you guys, but I don't do super well in the hot summertime. I get way overheated and I have to sit down in the air conditioning. And what these giraffes actually have, oh, that was perfect there. Mastari's given us a little viewpoint. She's got these nice big ears that are quite thin. And those ears can help them actually with some heat reduction or heat loss, as there's blood vessels in them. And as the blood flows through their ears and they flap them about, they're able to cool off the blood going back into their body. Now, we're going to talk in a moment here as well, but they also have those things on top of their heads. Those are called ossicones. We'll get back to that in a second, but they also help with heat reduction. And we can see in the back too here, if we look around our giraffe friends, we can see a nice long tail. Now, this tail here, it can change on animal to animal what their purpose is, but for a giraffe, it helps them get rid of the flies that they have in the heat. So they can swish it around all over and kind of shoo away any flies. Similar to if you've seen a horse or a cow in a field, they use their tails for the same purpose. We have fly swatters, of course. So one other thing here we talked about with the caribou is their eating habits. So just like our caribou are having snack, our giraffes are also getting some snacks today here. So we can take a peek. They each have their own bucket, and it looks like they've got some pellets in there today. So giraffes are also a ruminant species, which means they have a 4-chambered stomach. So one thing that you can always bet on for a ruminant animal is they always have access to some sort of food. So they're getting pellets right now as a snack, but we can see in the background there's a tall hay feeder. And one of our keepers has also said that this feeder is going to go down later on, but if we look in the back, we can see another one stuffed with hay as well. That means they always have access to some sort of food to be eating, as they're constantly chewing, swallowing, and then re-chewing all of their food. So if you ever come visit our giraffes, and I think Matu Maini is actually doing it in the back right now, he is just kind of hanging out and he is chewing. He's just standing and chewing his cud. So he has regurgitated, or kind of like a baby vomit, up some of his food. And now he is eating it for the second time. It just, was so good the first time round. He wants to get a second taste of it. Now, something these animals don't really have to compete with or have any issues with like the caribou do when they're out trying to find all of their food is that their food is around all year long. So I mentioned there's a dry season versus a wet season for them. That can be one kind of main difference. But they pretty much have access to food all the time. And that's because I know we're feeding them by hand right now, but typically they use their long tongues. Let's see if we can get a shot of their tongue here. There we go. That's perfect. They use their long tongue to pull leaves off of branches of trees like this we have painted in the background. And these trees are around pretty much all over the savanna for them where they live. Now, they do some migration. I looked it up for us here to give us a comparison. If anyone's ever been to the CN Tower in Toronto, they have about a 20 to 30 kilometer radius or area that they'll migrate around to find their food. That's like if you tried walking from the Toronto Zoo all the way to the CN Tower. That's the same distance that a giraffe will travel in to find their food. So they do a somewhat of a migration, but not anything compared to those caribou who have to move during that really intense cold winter to try and find their different snacks and food. Plus, for them, their food is on the ground, whereas most of a giraffe's snacks and food are coming from up above in the trees. We can kind of see right now, but Mastari is actually, in order to get her head down here, she's had to spread her legs out a little bit. to be able to lower her body's overall height, as they are quite a tall animal. And when a giraffe does this, it means they can't move away as quickly as they might if they were standing upright. So giraffes don't love to put their head down forward. And in fact, you really only see them do it when they're drinking water in the wild. And so they'll lean over when they think it's safe, and they have to spread their legs out pretty far to lean their head down to take a sip of water. Now, if you're ever here at the Toronto Zoo, I always encourage everyone to try and find our water dishes, as they are actually hidden in and amongst the exhibits. And for the giraffes, I'm going to do a quick pan across the exhibit here. And I think I've pointed this out in a past exhibit, but I don't know if anyone can see. The water bowl is actually in the shot right now. Can anyone see it? The giraffes are walking in front of it. Well, we'll see here. Can anyone see the water dish in here? Anyone in the chats?
No one in the chats, nor I.
Nor you. Oh my goodness, I think I finally stumped everyone. See this log right here? It's actually 3D. It's very well camouflaged. That is their water dish. So we have it raised up a little bit for them here, but we like to camouflage those in to make them as natural as part of the exhibit as we possibly can. Now, one other cool comparison here that we can talk about between our caribou and our giraffes is their feet. So they are both a hooved species. So we can look down here. They are what's called a even-toed ungulate, which is also, funny enough, my favorite word ever. It's an incredible word to say, ungulate. So they have their hooves as well. Now, unlike the caribou, their hooves don't change texture between summer and winter, as they just need them to be one texture the whole time. But they do grow. And I don't know about anyone here, but I have some nail polish on my hands because I had to file them, and I put a pretty color on them. And I was feeling kind of springy today on such a cold, cold winter's day. Now, we don't put nail polish, obviously, on our giraffes, but they do have to get a manicure every once in a while. So they do lots and lots of training to build trust with their keepers in order to be able to lift up and present their feet out to their keeper, and so they can get a hoof trim. And it's filing. This is also super important for us to be able to see the health of their feet and make sure that everything is safe, as it's so important. Giraffes spend most of their life on their feet. They don't lie down too much, especially in the wild. And so we need to make sure that they're all doing healthy and happy here. So we go through a lot of positive reinforcement and free choice training with our giraffes here at the zoo. And even little Matumaini is learning how to do that as well. It takes some time to build up the trust with them and have them come in. Now, really important though is that, notice there's a barrier here between us and the giraffes. Even though they're a ruminant and a herbivore animal, so they're not going to eat us, they are still very, very large animals, and we have to be super careful with them. They're also still wild animals. So we want to make sure that safety for them and our keepers and staff is a top priority. So for the giraffes, we always have to have a protected contact with them, especially when they're hungry. You know, they can come over and get a little pushy sometimes. And it's a little bit hard to tell, but the size of their head is quite massive. So we have to keep our safe distance for that. All right, look at this good shot we've got here of her nice big ears on her head. And that's a great example of the Allen's rule that Morgan was talking about as well. Caribous have the cold, or the small ears in the cold, and giraffes have big ears in the hot. All right, Jesse, I think we're going to throw it back to you to see if anyone's gotten a riddle answer. And also, I think we have a Kahoot to do as well.
We sure do. I'll pull up the Kahoot game pin in a minute so you guys can check that out. We've already got over 100 people queued up in the Kahoot. We're going to pull that up in just a sec for everybody. We did have some riddle winners after a few people that sort of bandied about with various live animals. Our winner on Facebook, Elizabeth Hewitson, and Sonia Bungay on YouTube both said Allen's rule. So Allen's rule, you guys were paying attention. Way to go, everybody. That is our answer today. I also, while I'm pulling up our Kahoot here, Mary Ellen, when the big giraffe was coming towards you, my mind went instantly to the Jurassic Park theme music and the Brachiosaur. Dun, 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 dun. They do move in herds. Anyway, we're going to dive in with questions after this too. A lot of you have already been asking questions in the chat, which is spectacular. If you're new to Kahoot, we're going to start soon. It's a 4-question quiz. The faster you answer, the more points you get. Now, you don't win anything, but you do win Mary Ellen, Morgan, and I's everlasting respect. So I'm going to bring Morgan back in too. And the two of you can help give us hints before every answer comes up. So let me cue this up, and we are going to get underway. And then I'm coming to Miss McInnes's class in Cumberland Center for our first question live after that. Here we go. Starting our Kahoot. I kind of hope a named giraffe or a named caribou wins this. As you see, we've got all animal names. We're going to see 3, 2, 1, and go. Giraffes can get how tall? What do we think? Is it 8 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, or like 19 feet? 10 seconds left. You know, I think we were talking about how tall people are. I think they're over 8 feet probably. I think we can rule that out. I think Madam Amy is 8 feet probably already. The baby. Mary Ellen can tell us about that. But 130 answers. Most of you got this right. 19 feet is like the peak height male giraffe. Very, very good, guys. I wanted to give you a softball one at the beginning. Genius Sloth takes our lead, and we will head to question 2 together. Here we go. All right, another quiz. What is the temperature range caribou survive in the wild? So how big? From how cold to how warm? Think about, -10 to +10 would be 20 degrees. That would be answer A. If it's -20 to +10, that's 30 degrees. So how far a temperature range can caribou survive in the wild? Is it 20, 30, 40, or over 50 degrees Celsius? For our American friends, that's like, geez, off the cuff, it's like 90 degrees temperature range. Really wide range here, but it is over 50 degrees. It can be -30 and over +20 in caribou's native habitats. They can survive a huge range of temperatures. Actually, Toronto can have that range of temperatures, but we have to go inside and wear special clothes. Caribou can just survive that all the time. All right, how's our leaderboard going? Completely changed. Rocky Bunny takes our lead by barely for Glowing Badger. We're going to go to question 3. Let's see. Okay, multi-select, so it's going to be more than one answer. What are some foods the zoo giraffes love to munch on? Pick more than one. It might be more than one answer. Is it popcorn, kale, banana peels, or filet mignon? I'm not sure about one of them. We've got we'll see. Very few answers so far. You guys are so unconfident. How many? Could be more than one. Could be several. Might not be filet mignon, maybe. Here we go. Our answers are popcorn, kale, and banana peels. 3 of our 4 they love to munch on. The Kahoots decided to freeze me a little bit because something should go wrong in every virtual broadcast. There we go. Most of you pick kale. This is going to change your leaderboard a lot, right? The final question that I'll tell you might pertain to Alan's rule. True or false? Animals in cold climates often have big, huge ears. Cold climates like caribou, big, huge ears? What do we think? True or false? Great questions coming in the chat as well. All right. See, 8 seconds left. Over 130 of you in this Kahoot. That's crazy. One of our biggest ever. Nicely done. 160. Wow. The answer is false. In warm climates, you have the big ears to radiate the heat outwards. In cold climates, you want tiny ears close to your head so that they don't freeze. All right. Let's check our final leaderboard. If you are any of these people on Facebook or YouTube, let us know who you are. We'd love to give you a shout out. Charlie Lemmy number 3. Agent Tiger number 2. And for all the marbles, by a huge margin, our winner, biggest ever, Rocky Bunny. Way to go, guys. All right. We're going to head to questions now. Miss McInnes's class, 4th graders, if you guys want to come on in and join us, you are good to go for our first question.
All right, Amelia, come on up. Okay, everybody. Here we go. So cool. We're all excited because one of our students was the top of the podium.
Hey, way to go, Rocky Bunny.
You don't say your name.
I'm Amelia, and how much food do giraffes eat in about a year?
Yeah, in a year, Mary Ellen. No pressure.
Oh, no pressure there. I might have to do some quick math for that one there. But so for our 3 giraffes in here right now, we have them at very different ages and stages of their life. So we have an adult, kind of, I'd say maybe like a teenager, and then a baby giraffe as well. He's under a year still old. So obviously, depending on their age, that'll change how much they eat in a year. But I would say this area of the zoo gets like at least a truckload of hay and pellets for them every couple of days. Wow. So I don't know exactly how much weight of food that is for them, but it is a lot. This hay feeder over here is always full. We just got some more snacks put up for them here. And like the Kahoot mentioned, Kiko, our male, loves banana peels, absolutely loves them. And Amani loves kale, and they all love popcorn. So they get a large variety of different foods as well.
Great answer. I love popcorn too, so I completely commiserate with the giraffes. We are going to head to the RCDSB virtual school. So if you guys want to unmute your mic, turn on your camera. I know you've got a question from Talia, but I'd love if you'd say it with us on camera. And then we're going to head to Mr. W and Mr. S's class right after that. RCDSB virtual school. In lieu of that, I'll share it personally. It's a caribou question for you, Morgan. So it's Talia wants to know if the caribou have furry hooves or if they're bare.
They do. That's a great question. I think we might be able to get to see part of a hoof here. They do have fur that goes over their hoofs. The whole thing isn't furry, so they do have a nail part to it, but they are one of the only deer species that has hair that kind of hangs over their nails. So there's kind of a mixture of both in there. There's a furry part that goes over and a hard part that would kind of just be the same as our nail.
Fantastic. Thanks, Morgan. All right, Mr. W, Miss S, we're just collating the classes together. If you ever want one of these camera spots, by the way, you can check us out on exploringbytheseat.com and register for programs in advance, and then you get to join us live on camera, which is way more fun. Mr. W, Mr. S, welcome in grade 2s. Hi.
Hi, we've got Evie here who has a question.
What is your favorite part about working with the animals?
Ooh, great question. I'm going to head to Morgan first because you were just on camera. Favorite part about working with the animals? It's a tough one.
Oh my gosh, that is such a hard question. I think mine would be seeing all of their different personalities come out. So you start to learn which animals are a bit more shy, like the caribou we have way in the back, versus which animals are wanting to be the star of the show, like Matella here. So that's my favorite part, learning about each of their personalities.
Very, very cool. And then Mary Ellen, do you have a giraffe-related thing or just generally a favorite part about working with the animals?
Oh, yeah. I also agree with Morgan. I think learning their different personalities is really fun. Morgan and I actually come from different departments within the Toronto Zoo. And then we are lucky enough that we get to partner with these videos every month with you, Jessie. So one of my favorite things about working with the animals is seeing all of the different work and effort that goes into caring for them here. And part of my job is educating all year round. And so getting to show them off and teach people about them and their conservation and why they're so important is one of my favorite parts. And, you know, nothing beats when you're showing off an animal and you've just seen that it's now somebody's new favorite animal as well.
Very nice. Thanks for the wonderful answers, ladies. Stony Plain Central, Miss D, Madam Stephanie, I am coming to you momentarily, I promise, but I'm going to take a few questions from our online friends first. This one's for you, Mary Ellen, from Kareem in grade 6 in Miss Kerr's class. How do they sleep, our giraffe friends? What do they do?
Nice. Yeah, so during the broadcast, when I was talking about their feet, I mentioned that they spend a lot of the time on their feet and on their hooves, and that involves sleeping as well. So there's quite a few large herbivorous animals who all sleep standing up. So think of horses, cows, many deer species, and giraffes as well. And this is just due to safety for them. I always encourage everyone, if you come to the Toronto Zoo and you happen to see one of our adults lying down, because they do it occasionally here, wait a few moments and see if they're going to get up, because it's very awkward for them to get all of their very lanky limbs back underneath of them in order to be standing and stable to move around. And so they spend a lot of their time just physically standing. They can lock out their knees, and that's how they're able to sleep. Now, I don't know about anyone watching today, but I like to sleep for a full 8 to 9 hours every night. I need a lot of sleep to be this happy, cheery person you see in front of you today. Giraffes do not need that much sleep. They actually only get about 2 to 3 hours a night, and they take it in little naps or power naps throughout the day, which if I only needed 3 hours a night, Jesse, I don't know about you, but I feel like we would be
Different people.
yeah, we'd be different people. Also unstoppable. I feel like I'd have so much time to do everything in life. But so yeah, they sleep standing up in little power naps throughout their day.
Very, very cool. Great question, guys. All right, one more on YouTube, and then we're heading to Stony Plain Central in just a second. Oh, so many good questions. Okay, Miss Ruta's class, Ovi, wants to know, why is there a red tag in the giraffe's ear, Mary Ellen?
Oh, a red tag in the giraffe's ear. I might have to see one of the giraffes turn around and look at me a little bit closer here. I don't know if there was a red tag in any of their ears. Some of our animals do have tags, though, on their ears. And that can be for two reasons. One is identification purposes, similar to farmers who tag their cattle, just to be able to tell the animals apart from each other. I'm not sure the caribou might have a tag in their ear. And the other way is actually for bug repellent, which is really cool. So the tags that you see give off a scent that insects don't like. And so it keeps the animal free of bugs around their heads.
Ooh, I want one of those for my head.
Right?
Morgan, we've got some tags in ears right there. Is that the reason? Do you know if you have people on hand to help?
Yes, so on our end, it is for identification. These animals all of our caribou came from another research herd. So they came with some identification attached to them, and that's how we can tell what line they came from and what year they were born and all of that type of stuff.
Very cool.
There's Metellas right there.
Hey, great question, guys. All right, Stony Plain Central, Miss Smith's class, unmute your mic. Come on in. Hey, Alberta.
How old can giraffes and caribou get?
Okay, we're going to go to caribou first. Great question, guys. Morgan, how old do the caribou get?
So it can be a little bit different in the wild versus here in captivity, but 15 years old is usually about the max. Now, it can give or take a couple years, but 15 is pretty lucky.
Okay, and then Mary Ellen with our giraffes, how about them?
Just a little bit longer for the giraffes. They're usually around their 20s. So our mama in the back is 9 years old right now. So she's like kind of middle-aged. Her aunt, though, who lived here at the Toronto Zoo, lived to 29, which was quite impressive. So we're very hopeful for all of our giraffes that we have now to have as long as a lifespan as she did.
Yeah, imagine how long they'd live if they slept 8 to 9 hours a night.
Exactly.
Let's head to Miss D's class. If you guys have a question for us, come on in and welcome to the program. Hi, everybody. Hello. I know you're on camera, but do you have a question for Mary Ellen and Morgan?
Okay, Benny, come here. See to the camera right here. Ask your question.
How do caribou shed their antlers?
Yeah, how do they shed their antlers, Morgan? Great question.
That is such a good question. So, kind of really simple answer. They actually just fall off. They will go through an internal biological process that kind of starts the whole cycle, but randomly it'll get a little bit loose when it's the time of season for it to fall off, and one day it will just fall down. And then slowly as they go through the process, it'll build back up again.
I was going to say for our classes, some of you might have seen this in the news recently. I know it was all over Canada, but they captured a picture of a moose, not a caribou, but same sort of idea, in the woods, and the actual footage of it shaking off its antlers. I'd never seen that in my whole life of studying animals, so I really encourage you to check that out. That video is online everywhere right now. Madam Stephanie, I'm going to head to you live. We're going to take a few more from our online friends, and we're going to take a few more questions over the next 6 minutes together. Time flies and you're having fun, folks. But come on in Milton and take us away.
Why do the giraffes have these antler thingies on their head?
Yes, what's about the ossicones,
Yeah.
Mary Ellen? Tell us more.
So their ossicones are really interesting, and they have kind of two main purposes, I'll say. They are similar to a caribou antler, which is in the sense of what they're made of. So they are bone with skin over top, but unlike an antler on a caribou, they are going to stay on their head forever, and they don't fall off seasonally. And actually, when they're born, they're kind of they look kind of floppy and they have to kind of grow and get harder as they get older. Now, male giraffes use them for fighting. So it makes their head a little bit heavier. And when they're fighting over territory or space or a female or maybe food, they will swing their necks incredibly dramatically and they kind of crash into each other. And so when they do that, having a heavier head helps them with that kind of final blow that they get on each other. Now, female giraffes also have ossicones, just like female caribou have antlers. They don't fight as much. If they have to, they will protect their young, but they use it more for the thermoregulation that I was talking about with their ears as well. So blood vessels are up in the ossicones and it can actually help them cool down. So it's also kind of a similar note to the Allen's rule as well, which is really cool.
Very, very cool. And I can't encourage our classes enough to check out Giraffes Fighting as a video on YouTube, wherever you want to watch it. It is one of the most incredible things in all of nature. Also, the idea, Mary Ellen, of bones with skin on them, I guess that's what like a whole body is, but I've never thought of ourselves that way. It's very creepy. We're going to take a quick one from YouTube and then a few more questions from our live groups, just picked at random. I know we have so many questions today. I will note, if you do have to go soon or if you have more questions you didn't get answered during the live broadcast today, Mary Ellen and Morgan have kindly agreed to join us for a Padlet. So this is a virtual whiteboard. You're going to be able to go there, share your questions, and have them answered. We're going to leave that up for 2 days after this broadcast. So if you want to find out more about caribou or giraffe, head there or head to the Toronto Zoo in person or torontozoo.com and at the Toronto Zoo on social media to learn so much more about the incredible animals they have there. Now, I'm going to head quickly to YouTube and then our live classes. Miss McLean's class, Ingleboro Public School, wanted to know, how long do caribou sleep? Morgan.
Oh, that is a really good question because it's a little bit hard to measure as they do lie down and may look like they're sleeping, but they're really just resting and digesting their food. So it's on and off. I do luckily have a keeper beside me and she might have an hour range. Yep, she's agreeing. It's kind of just on and off. They do sleep standing up as well, like many horses and other kind of deer species. So I wish I had an exact hour for you, but they don't just go to bed for a period of time like we do. They'll take little naps here and there.
Because these guys come from a climate where there is a lot of nighttime, especially in winter, they are really good at staying awake in the dark. So they're really hard to track. They kind of just take power naps whenever they feel like it. I feel like they're probably pretty similar to the giraffes in that matter.
Very cool. Thanks, guys. I love these tag team zoo efforts. We get like the whole gang involved every time. It's so much fun. Okay. We got a few more minutes for questions. I'm just going to pick at random. Mr. W and Miss S's class, if you guys have one for us, come on in. Hey, grade 2s.
How much food does a giraffe need in a day?
In a day, Mary Ellen, food for a giraffe per day.
Food for a day. I love that. So in the buckets that we were feeding them out of, each giraffe, we had 3 in total. I'd say they probably get about half to 2/3 of that bucket in pellets a day for each of them. They have free access to hay all day and all night long. So however much they want to eat of that, they will. Obviously, our mama's going to eat the most. And little baby, he's just started to get tall enough to actually reach up to the hay feeder. So he's now able to eat it as well. So he's going to eat the littlest amount out of all 3 of them. And then they get their extra enrichment snacks as well put into these buckets. So again, there's 3 of them in here and they can now all reach all the feeders. So there's a bit of a variation of how much they're each eating depending on how much they're getting to in a day as well.
Very, very cool. Mary Ellen, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for all of this. We're going to head to Miss McInnes's class for our final question. And again, folks, head to our Padlet if you want to share more questions after the broadcast. All our registered groups will get this link as well. So if you don't get it during the live broadcast, just stay tuned in your inbox in just a minute. But let's head to Maine for one final query. Come on in, guys. Hey, 4th graders.
Hello. Hi, my name's BZ, and why are giraffes' tongues purple?
Ooh, we always get this with giraffes. I love this question.
My favorite question. And this is why I love this question so much, Jesse. You've probably heard this answer a few times. There is a best estimation for it. And that's one thing that I love to point out is that science doesn't know everything yet. And we're constantly learning new information each and every day. So there's kind of two answers to this. We don't know, but we have a best guess, and that is to help with sunburns. So as I was mentioning, giraffes are eating lots and lots of leaves off of trees that are super tall, just like them, in the hot savanna weather. So if you've gone outside on a really hot day and you don't have sunscreen on, you might be at risk of getting sunburnt. So we put on sunscreen to keep ourselves safe. But a giraffe has to eat each and every day, and they don't really have a sunscreen that they can apply to their tongue. So we see this dark purpley bluey color instead, and that actually helps to protect from sunburns. It would be really unfortunate if they sunburnt their tongue and they couldn't eat anymore. I don't know if anyone's ever had hot chocolate or tea or maybe eaten soup too fast and you accidentally burn the roof of your mouth or your tongue. It really stops you from enjoying your food for the next few days. Also, it stops you from being able to taste what you're eating as well. And that cannot be great for a giraffe out in the wild.
Every time I eat pizza, Mary Ellen, that happens to me. It's
right?
Folks, this has been such an amazing program. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to highlight the amazing work the Toronto Zoo is doing. Again, if you want to follow up with more zoo programs we've got on the go, you can register with us at exploringbytheseat.com. Check out all our upcoming zoo programs. We'd love to have you do that with us. Go to our YouTube channel if you want to see over 40 zoo programs. We've done so much over the last years. Any animal you can think of, we have probably featured on these programs. And of course, thetorontoZoo.com, at the Toronto Zoo on all social media platforms. Check them out. There's so much more to discover. Morgan, I'm going to head to you for one final message before we bring in all our classes to say a big thank you and farewell. Is there anything you'd like our kids to leave with today about the amazing work you guys are doing at the zoo?
Oh, that's such a good one. I guess my biggest thing for here, the animals at the zoo, is they serve such a purpose by being ambassadors. So you saw these adorable caribou here at the zoo where they're protected. So you can think about the ones in the wild and how they need protection as well. The area that they live in need protection. And these animals can be ambassadors. So we fall in love with them and can help their wild counterparts as well.
Can't think of a better way to wrap up than that. Mary Ellen, I'll bring you in as well. And as you both know at this point, we are going to bring in all our classes today. A big thank you and farewell. YouTubers, Facebook, you guys can scream at home too. But Miss McInnes, Mr. W, Mr. S, Stony Plain Central, Virtual School, thank you so much, everyone.